Namaste, everyone. A very warm welcome to today's Yes Talk titled The Circle of Abundance. The guest speaker with us today is Ms. Shilpa Ajwani. Shilpa Ajwani is a leadership and strategic coach, having an illustrious career that has earned her a reputation as a transformative leader. She is currently the founder and CEO of UnoMantra, a business strategy consulting and leadership advisory firm. She has also founded SHEmantra, a global community of women entrepreneurs in service-based businesses as a platform for sharing, learning, and growing together. Welcome, Shilpa ma'am. Thank you so much for being with us today. Looking forward to an interesting session with you. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Arunima. Namaste, everyone. Wish you all an abundant morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you might be joining us today from. My name is Shilpa Ajwani, and it's a big privilege to be invited to Yes Talks. It's a platform which I think brings so much of meaning to the world that we live in today. And I'm very grateful to Sri Vidya, my friend, a fellow SHEmantran, and someone who I believe is on a beautiful path ahead in her life, for the introduction to Dr. Bijlani. So thank you, Dr. Bijlani, for this invitation. Thank you, Arunima, for having me here. And thank you for everybody who is joining and will be seeing this later on in their own time as well. May we begin by requesting everybody to close their eyes and for the next 30 seconds, just meditate on the word abundance. And I would love for you to visualize as vividly the word abundance and what it means for you, the picture that it brings to your mind, your heart, your soul. As you feel complete in your visualization, feel free to open your eyes. Have an abundant smile that shares with us what you saw. And if any of you would like, please share in the chat what are some things that became visible for you as you meditated on the word abundance. If you would like to unmute and share, that's also absolutely fine. The color green, nature. I definitely associate the word abundance with nature, and you will hear more on that. Any aspect of the Lord. To be surrounded by loved ones, definitely. That is so beautiful. Plenty, fullness, nothing missing, no gap or void, says Dr. Bijlani. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. And this is one of my favorite words in the English dictionary. And it's a word that I am still trying to understand and live and feel with all my being every single day. And that's why I decided to share with you this particular story, and I called it The Circle of Abundance. In my own small way, I will show you how I'm living it, and so many beautiful souls are enabling me to live it today. so I'm not alone in this journey. I will share some slides. Arunima, please let me know if you can see my slide.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Perfect. So my talk today is titled The Circle of Abundance. And I would like to start with a story where I take you back in time, not too long ago, but just a few years. This is the year 2017. I'm in Mumbai at the Hotel Taj. I have been invited for a very beautiful surprise, which I just got to know a day before. And I had to fly, leaving everything behind because I had to be there. It was a prestigious moment in my life. I was receiving the award for the CEO of the year. I had a career by then of over 25 years. I had been in the corporate world. I enjoyed every moment of it because I was building purpose-driven businesses, brands, and was part of the journey from startup to scale to even transforming businesses. And these were global businesses, so the footprint was really large. And as I found myself on the stage receiving that award on behalf of my team, I felt that in one sense, that award that day completed me. And as I was coming down the steps, in just a few seconds, I actually relived my 25-year-old career, almost quarter of a century, being a managing director and a corporate leader, achieving success after success. And if anybody had asked me in those years, who am I? My answer was very simple. Shilpa Ajwani, National Sales Director or Managing Director or Strategy Director. It was just so simple because you had a title and you knew exactly who you are and what were you responsible for. And this life was challenging on one hand, but it was so simple because it just defined you. And we are all creatures of comfort, so it kept me comfortable. It helped me make money. But as I was coming down the steps, I felt the word meaning come up again and again and again. What should have been a big celebration actually became a moment of deep reflection, introspection, and I would say a little bit of panic because I said, with all my definition intact, why am I even thinking like that? Why am I worried? What am I thinking is not complete in my life? If I compare it to anybody, there are so many who would love to be in my place. But what exactly do I need more? And then the answer started to emerge bit by bit by bit, just like this hibiscus flower from my garden. I saw it first planted, and then a few days later, there was this nice little bud, and I was waiting in anticipation. And then one fine sunny morning, a big bloom. And that bloom for me really was that moment when I realized that my time in the corporate world was amazing. It was full of success. But now my life needed to move from success to significance. From money making to meaning making is really something that I started to think. And on my birthday, just a year after that award, I had pretty much made up my mind to leave the corporate world and to enter the very uncomfortable world of entrepreneurship. This was outside of my comfort zone. This is a life I had only read about, heard about, never lived it. And everybody who heard said, who in their right mind would do this in their mid 40s? How are you able to even think about this when you are so successful? And I tried to explain in vain to everybody that because I have tasted this sweet success, I understand there is more to my life. And, and that's the day when I really made up my mind that birthday to move from success and being very thankful and grateful and blessed, as I say this, in all my humility, to move to a life of greater significance. This meant that I lost virtually everything. And they say that you've got to perhaps leave behind your old self to be able to embrace the larger, more significant self. And, uh, and this really started to come alive for me bit by bit by bit. Whereas my identity had been only about the word professional, because that's who I saw myself. That was my primary identity, as is with so many people who do the same thing for many, many, many years. But now, bit by bit by bit, as I grew from a place of discomfort, that zone, which is a fear zone, to starting to enter my growth zone in life, I actually realized that I was building a completely new persona. My values were very much the same, but who I was a more wholesome definition. And I started to embrace myself with 4 P's. The first P, and not the only P, was me as a professional, where I was a purpose-led entrepreneur running my strategy consulting and leadership advisory firm called UnoMantra that would work with purpose-led entrepreneurs and startups and businesses around the globe and help them build their strategy based on their purpose. That was the professional part, but it didn't end there. I became acquainted with much more. And the more beautiful part of it was me, the person. And it started with going deeper into looking at who was I, who was really I. And minus the golden handcuffs, minus the title, minus the big office, minus the power, who was I? And that was really a beautiful discovery. It made me humble and it brought a lot of joy because suddenly I could see abundance everywhere. I didn't need to be limited in the definition of who was I. I investigated myself as a human being on this planet as well, my relationship with nature, with the planet, with everything that I see around me. And I started to look at everything closely. Before this, perhaps, I always had plants in my terrace, but I didn't even know which ones because I was rushing from one place to another. My life was about the calendar. Every minute was measured. Where was the time to smell the roses, let alone plant them? And this is what I discovered, my relationship with everything around me. Also my roles as a mother, a wife, a daughter, a friend, a lot of which I realized had become transactional because, hey, life was busy. And I was legitimately busy. It wasn't a mere excuse, but that doesn't allow you to go deeper and celebrate all these precious relationships that we are blessed with. I decided to own this blessing once again in my life. And the third was the P of passion. I realized I was passionate about seeing people thrive and seeing groups of people thrive and large groups of people thrive, celebrate, grow together, rejoice in becoming better than who they were yesterday, and enable each other in beautiful ways. And that is something which made me think about becoming a community builder. And I'll tell you that story in a bit too. And last but not the least, the fourth P, which defines my life today, is that of a volunteer and an advisor on causes related to gender equity, safety of women and children, minorities, and working for that cause in a strategic way with not-for-profits, as well as young startups and their women entrepreneurs. so that they are successful and we see more equity in our world. So I want to be an ambassador of that. So you see, from having just one P, one identity, my life feels more wholesome. There is more joy, there is more purpose, there is certainly more abundance. And what I realized was that as I took a moment to move from transaction to transformation, everything around me suddenly just screamed the word abundance. I went on holidays and I just couldn't stop looking at the sky and clicking pictures, north, south, east, west, wherever I went. I just couldn't get enough of the sky, the forests, the grass, the deserts, the mountains, the snow. Everything seemed so beautiful. I stepped out on my terrace and hey, this sight greeted me on a winter morning. And I said, I have abundance right here. I don't even need to go searching for it anywhere. And it just made it so clear in my mind that there is enough for all of us, 8 billion people on this planet, but provided we are willing to share with each other. And that's a thought which hasn't left me. It's getting stronger by the day. And when we were hit by the pandemic, I think I just went much deeper with this thought. The pandemic brought upon us just very, very suddenly, actually, thoughts of scarcity. We didn't have enough of anything. We didn't have our freedom. We couldn't step out of the homes we were living in. Things which we had taken for granted were suddenly taken away from us. We couldn't go and even hug someone we loved very much. That became a luxury. Groceries, things that we were just so casual about. Everything seemed to have a premium attached to them. And there was scarcity and danger and fear, all the things that really shook me from the mode that I had been, the joy, the purpose, the abundance. And then one day, after a call with a client, where we had decided that we would change the way their business is so that they can survive, I felt suddenly very heavy in my heart and I just sat down on the bed after that call. And I said, these are big entrepreneurs. If they can hire my services, they can go to other experts, they can save themselves, they can save their businesses. But what about a lot of women entrepreneurs, especially those who decided to make a second innings with their career? People like me who wanted to move from success to significance. And they studied hard, they took all the credentials, they invested time, money, effort in becoming someone they had never been in their life. And they did that in their 40s and 50s, even as other people laughed at them for giving up good careers and taking up something they knew nothing about. I'm talking about women entrepreneurs in service-based businesses like coaching, consulting, and counseling. And in the pandemic, coaching, consulting, counseling honestly was thrown out of the window because all the time went in cooking, cleaning, and caregiving. And I said these 3 C's are so important. The world needs them even more. We need more and better coaches. We need more consultants saving businesses, leaders from misery and ensuring that their success is guaranteed for the world to move forward. And we certainly need more counselors, as mental health is something which is threatened like never before. And if these women don't show up with their gifts, with their talents, we will lose. The planet will lose when it needs it the most. And that's where the idea of a community was born in my mind pretty much that day. But before it really germinated, I thought about, what does the word community really mean for me? Because I was feeling lonely. I was feeling like I didn't have enough people who understood what I was mentioning. And this is where I was feeling alone. And this came out as an answer to that thought in my mind that evening, that no longer do we need to be alone. We all can move from me to we. And that thought actually became the community I founded then in July of 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic, where we didn't know what would the world look like, when will the lockdowns end, when we will move to the world that we once were familiar with. And there was born SHEmantra, as I imagined it to be, a community of women entrepreneurs in service-based businesses, all coming together, because I realized that the storm was the same. We were all in different boats, but we had to steer ourselves outside of the storm and prepare ourselves that when the storm ended, we would be stronger. We would feel more abundant. We wouldn't give up on our gifts, on everything that we had worked so hard for. And SHEmantra was born as a digital community because the world was virtual at that time. And for me, the word community really meant a safe space, a shared purpose, and collective success. Three things which I thought, which are dear to me, and I would visualize them to be an integral part of a community I would like to belong to. I said, why not bring all these three together? And in the idea of SHEmantra, the purpose of SHEmantra was the first to come very clear to me. And all this was happening very intuitively. I had never built a community before. I had built it inside of my businesses, but that is very, very different. This was the first time as if one is divinely guided and becomes just a catalyst, a medium to go out and do something which the world needs. This was my foray into thinking abundantly, not just for myself and my family during the lockdown, during COVID-19, but to also think about everybody else I had the possibility to connect with, impact, and enable. And that's why the purpose of SHEmantra, the community I founded, has three parts to it. The first part is to enable women entrepreneurs leading service-based businesses like coaching, consulting, counseling, therapists, to thrive by growing personally and professionally. This is very important because I just feel that the other word for life is growth. And any being that is constantly focused on growing is actually expanding the universe in some way for us. And that's what really brings joy to them and to others around them. And that's where personal and professional growth for SHEmantrans was very integral to our purpose, and it still is. The second part of this purpose was that the ability to come together, to share ideas, our talents, which are so unique, our gifts, innovative work methods, so that we inspire each other, our experiences and our wisdom. And last but not the least, it was to create a safe, encouraging, and friendly environment where these women could just show up as themselves and feel secure that they are not alone. They have like-minded community members around them, for them. And together, the weight, the burden, which many of us were feeling, the anxiety, the fear, would start to dissolve and bring in its place excitement, joy, purpose, friendship, love, abundance. And that's exactly been our journey. Together with the purpose, I also thought about the principles. And when I did the first meeting for SHEmantra, just 7 SHEmantrans turned up, including me. And that was another beautiful lesson, that you don't need hundreds and thousands of people. It can start with just a few like-minded people with a pure intention in their heart. All of them came, and there was commonality of purpose, of intention. And we spoke about our purpose, and we spoke about these 5 principles. The first being abundance. And like I said, we really spoke about and discussed that there is enough for everybody, provided we are willing to share. A lot of people before that had thought that women communities don't work, they don't sustain, they die out in 6 months because people are just full of scarcity and fear, and they will not share, they will compete in a negative way, they will gossip, and it'll be all negative. So some people even advised me against it, and I said, then it's even more worth to have this experiment. Let's do it. Let's defy whatever is the commonly understood meaning of human beings coming together and women coming together. Let's just defy that and see what happens. So abundance was our first principle, is our first principle. The second I really wrote down was limitless potential, because sometimes, and I've seen this is typical of women, I work with so many of them in my business, outside of my business, I'm one of them as well, that sometimes we just doubt ourselves, our potential. And by putting this down in our principles, I wanted to just make it so clear to everybody that we have limitless potential in ourselves. And when we come together, we will multiply it. So we'll have potential individually, and we'll have limitless potential as a community. And imagine what that can do to our world. The third principle we picked up was respect. Respect for ourselves, respect for our purpose, respect for the community, and for each other, and the world around us, that we will prepare ourselves to serve at even a higher level of consciousness. Respect. The fourth was collaboration. This one is easy. It is so important that when, in a community, we see 1 + 1, it does not add up to 2. It does not even signify 11. It should minimum mean 111. And that's what collaboration means, that you really have the synergies, abundantly combining and going out and multiplying the impact that you can create, because 2 people, 4 people, 10 people came together, and we saw enough and more evidence. On 14th of July this year, we'll celebrate our 3rd birthday. So women communities don't die out in 3 months and 6 months. They sustain beautifully. And it is because of this collaborative spirit, which is coming from a place of abundance, that we will see our 3rd birthday. And last but not least, growth, personal and professional growth. And when we enable ourselves, we grow, we enable others around us to grow, whether it is clients, whether it is families, whether it is our neighborhoods, the country, the world. There are endless possibilities when a person grows on how they go out and impact others and their growth. So these are our 5 principles. I'm sharing these because to me, these are guardrails, purpose and principles that keep us intact in terms of our intent as a community. And as you can see, the pandemic did end. And when we met, you should have just seen the emotions in the eyes, in the deep, warm hugs, in the love that was shared. Everybody said, doesn't feel like we are meeting a fellow SHEMantran for the first time. Everybody said, feels like we have a soul connection. Everybody said, Shilpa, how have you, out of 900 million people who exist on LinkedIn, because I went and invited people on LinkedIn alone, how did you just find us? And why us and why not others? To some things, I don't have answers. Perhaps Dr. Bijlani's wisdom is what I need to answer those kind of questions. What I just know is there was a lot of fun. We rejoiced. We celebrated. We grew together. And you can see we were having virtual sessions, hundreds of hours of high expertise sessions, trainings, workshops, events, fun meetups, where the hugs could be seen in action. And I met Sri Vidya for the first time. She and I should be in this picture. The red one where you see us celebrating Christmas and New Year. That was the time where we could actually go out and physically meet. We started to have international guests wanting to come and speak at SHEmantra. And last year in September, imagine this little idea sitting on the bed in my home became so big that we actually could dare to have a global international festival virtually. A festival where we wanted to speak about raising consciousness, speak about enabling a lot of entrepreneurs listening to us to go out and build purpose-led businesses, to grow themselves, and to seek out a community anywhere in the world where they are, so that nobody feels alone ever again. And this is something that we've been doing amazingly. And today, this strictly by invitation community, you actually have to be referred by a friend within SHEmantra to be invited. So we are niche, but we've grown organically to close to 500 SHEmantrans spread across 13 countries. Our meetups have gone from Singapore to London to USA to Canada to, of course, India. You name it, and there are beautiful things happening across the world for SHEmantra today. And I just feel so blessed to be a catalyst, seeing all this happening around me, sometimes through me, sometimes to me. And there are these three big initiatives we have launched actually right from the first year that we came into existence. The learning mantra to focus on our professional growth. We had coffee mantra to enable people to know each other more intimately, and from a contact become a connection. And then last year we launched something called well-being mantra, where we are focusing on holistic well-being for SHEmantrans, body, mind, and spirit. And we're looking at creating more wholesome coaches and consultants and counselors to send them out into the world at a higher level of consciousness. We also have 9 different micro communities based on the interests of SHEmantrans, everything from having our own book club called She Reads to a fitness and health community. We celebrated June as the month of yoga and what it really means, the Yoga Sutras under the She is Fit umbrella. We have many, many more, 9 different micro communities like that. She coaches, she trains, so many of them. This year, we also, because the numbers were increasing so beautifully, we actually created a She Welcomes Sport Committee, which onboards every new SHEmantran so that she feels a part of the family. And we have 7 city circles spread all over India in the major cities that we have. So there is a lot of action, and this is a purely voluntary community. There is no membership fee. It is a service-based community for service-based entrepreneurs. And you can see that there is this lovely model of leadership and empowerment. The idea is to enable as many SHEmantrans who would want to volunteer their time and become abundant in their leadership quotient to raise their hand and to say that one of the initiatives is something that they would like to lead and be a part of. So you see there are core committees under one leader for each of the initiatives that I spoke about, like the learning mantra, coffee mantra, well-being mantra. They are amazing women. And this is only possible when you operate from a place of generosity and abundance. These are some of our micro communities, the She is Fit, She Rises, which is an early risers group. So many of them, were challenged to wake up early. And together as a micro community, we've been able to shift habits. Complete night owls have actually become morning beings who end up by 7 o'clock doing meditation, their daily yoga, as well as going into nature, clicking some nice pictures and sharing some lovely thoughts with everybody right in the morning. So that is something which is huge. People who had stopped reading books, they were only buying books but never able to read them. Thanks to She Reads, we are reading 1 book a month and discussing it and increasing not just our intellectual capacity, but our ability to retain good information and share it with the world. So a lot of things are possible when you think from a place of abundance. And I say that because I see it in action every single day with our SHEmantrans. This is a very small initiative in our huge universe. But I think, something which really has been so meaningful in the lives of so many SHEmantrans today is an experiment worth replicating across the world. And it doesn't have to be called SHEmantra. It can be any kind of community. It can be a mom's community. It can be a teenagers community. It can be a community for business people. It can be a community of not-for-profits wanting to come together and learn how to be better at what they do and how they do it. The only condition really is that can we operate from a place of abundance? Because then we will really disown ourselves as separate beings, and then we'll unite in the truest sense of the word. The me will become a we, and that's where magic really starts to happen. And for anyone wanting to build a community in the future, I really say focus on 5 pillars. And these 5 will lay a very strong foundation upon which you can start to build, depending on why you are doing this. So let's start with the first C. So there are 5 C's. The first is really clarity of purpose. And that is so important. Who are you as a community? Who are you for? I think these 2 questions are essential to ask. And I would say that is one of the reasons why at SHEmantra we have a lot of people who contribute and think of it as a safe space, because we are so clear who we are and who we are for. So the moment you come in, even as a newcomer, there is that sense that, and I'm not saying it, many SHEmantrans say it, there is that sense that I have come home. And to me, that's the biggest compliment anyone can get or give, that I have come home. So it's possible when there is clarity of purpose as well as the principles. Because like I said, they are the guardrails. Challenges will come, conflicts will happen. That is a part of evolution, of growth, of transformation. All those will come, but it is how we will show up when those things happen. And that is pretty much determined by our purpose and our principles. The second C is connection. And connection is what is so important, because it is something which cannot be forced. It is, it is something that has to come from the heart. And I have seen that when there is authentic sense of communication, caring, that's where people start to feel bonded. That's where they start to feel that, yes, this is my place. This is my SHEmantra. This is not Shilpa's. I mean, yeah, she is who she is, but just the idea was hers. But we are co-creating this. And how is this even possible? It is possible because we stay so connected. And these days, I like to say that we have enough and more devices, more than we've ever had in history, to connect us. But we have very disconnected hearts. So what if we use those devices as well with the intent to connect, and in a way that is authentic, which is pure, which really shows love and concern and trust and friendship? That really makes a community come alive. The third C is culture. And I also write the word camaraderie separately too, because a lot of people today, one pandemic has ended, sort of, but the other one it has left us with is a pandemic of loneliness. And a lot of people could be sad. Not everybody is on the path to spirituality or even knows about it. They look for joy on the outside and not on the inside. And they're looking for happiness. Even if it is fleeting, they're looking for happiness. And rather than trying to find that from sources which are actually very, very detrimental to their long-term happiness and their existence even, why not bring people together in a culture where they see good examples, where they see naturally a place to thrive, to do good things, which bring to you a lot of peace and joy, because you feel like, A, you're not alone. B, there are so many positive examples of people doing amazing things around you, and you can learn all the time and start to implement. And when we make even one little shift in our life, just joining a challenge, which I did actually for the last 21 days in SHEmantra, we called it the gratitude and happiness challenge, 21 days. Every morning we started with being grateful for three things that we have in our life. One SHEmantra was leading us with different prompts, and every evening we reflected on one action for happiness that we would do consciously and then share on our group. Just doing this for 21 days has made so much of a difference. It's unbelievable the kind of sharing, authentic sharing, real sharing that we could get. And from there comes camaraderie, that friendship, that sense of fun. Yeah. And the fourth is creativity. People cannot be compelled to join even a virtual call. And even if they join to put their videos on, but what we can do is we can be very creative to even understand what do they really want, what are they seeking, what would be of value to them, how do we involve them in different ways, how do we get the inner child really happy and joyous and free and participating. And that's where the word creativity comes in. Creative thinking is actually a life skill. And if we can develop it as part of our community building initiatives and build it into our framework of building the community, nothing better than that. Don't let it get predictable. Don't let it get boring. Let there be candles on a cake. Let there be dances. Let there be fun times. And let people bring their whole self to the community, which brings me to the fifth C, which is contribution. And a community is nothing without people contributing. Sometimes they contribute with their silence, as I always say. And that is energy, good energy, because they're soaking it in till one day they are ready to give back. Some are more actively contributing. And like I said, we are a voluntary community. And everything that we've done has been possible because of the contribution everybody has done of their time, of their efforts, sometimes going out of their way and doing things for others with nothing as an expectation in return. So that contribution enriches any community. And if the purpose and the principles are such that they enable more and more people to raise their hand and contribute, then a community builder has won. The community has won. Each community member is richer, enriched in the most beautiful, abundant ways. And these these 5 C's, put into practice all together is where the magic really begins. And this brings me to the end of the SHEmantra story, a story that is still going on, does not have an end, and I wouldn't want it to have an end, but we would want to, put our principles to the biggest use that we can, to be guided by them, because we understand now that it is possible for each one of us to create a circle of abundance and to thrive in it and to blossom with it and to bloom together. Thank you. I'm open to answer any questions from the audience today. Thank you for coming on this Saturday evening to even listen to what I had to share. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Shilpa ma'am. It was a beautiful session and all of it was so inspiring. Thanks a lot again. Participants, if anyone has a question, please raise the hand. You can unmute yourself or put the questions in the chat box. Please go ahead. Shilpa ma'am, I request you to stop the sharing, screen sharing. Thanks.
So I see Lena is asking a question on how can we be a part of the community. So Lena, thank you very much, firstly, for showing an interest. SHEmantra is a community open to women entrepreneurs who are coaches, consultants, counselors, and you can get in touch with me on LinkedIn. and I can provide more information. If you know Sri Vidya from here, you can get in touch with her as well. She is a SHEMantran, and I'm very proud to have her as a part of SHEMantra as well. And this morning I discovered that we have Pragya Taneja, who is also very deeply connected with the ashram. And Dr. Bijlani, she was speaking highly about you as well this morning, as she wished me all the best. She's a SHEMantran as well. So if you know an existing SHEMantran, that's a good way. Otherwise, please connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to guide you.
Thank you, Shilpa. Such a beautiful session and such a beautiful community you've built. So, community building always has anecdotes, the funny ones and the other ones. So, any anecdote that is at the top of the mind, I'd love to hear a little bit because I joined this community fairly recently. So, just love to hear a little bit more if you can share. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sure. I think there's one story a day that comes up. I don't know if it's funny or not, but we've done some like pretty crazy things. Like once we decided, and these are all women, 40s, 50s, some in their early 60s perhaps as well, that enough of the serious stuff. We are just going to show up and we are going to just dance together. And firstly, people were like, these are coaches and they're consultants and very senior, very qualified. What will really happen with that? And this was close to our second birthday. But had you seen that dance party, I think all of our women would give the teenagers a big run for their money in the way that, we could see just the energy in that virtual room. And we were all on these little Zoom boxes, but good music. And it was such a dance party. And somebody's husband comes into the room suddenly and he sees his wife, and these 50 women on screen and this wife dancing like a maniac completely. He's never seen her like that. And there are some whose children walk into the room, just incidentally. And then they're like, you know how to dance, mom? We've never seen you dance in our life. And that was just like an amazing memory as to the camaraderie I was talking about. And a lot of these women said that left to themselves, they would never get on to a dance floor. They would be shy to even dance at weddings. And they would be very conscious if somebody were to catch them, even within the family, trying to have such a good time. And when they just turned up at the SHEmantra party, nobody knew what to expect. And everybody just had a blast. They had a good time and they asked, when are we doing this again? And I'm like, oh my God, ladies, now you're getting hooked onto something. But just that was just one very special moment. But it also had a deep meaning for me in terms of sometimes needs which you don't know exist. And they reveal themselves just by chance. So, yeah.
Thank you, Shilpa. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shilpa ma'am. Ujjwala, you had raised the hand. Please go ahead if you have any question. Okay, so they have left the session.
We have a suggestion from Mr. Anand. I can see that. And thank you, Mr. Anand, for that suggestion. I also really feel that it's a very important topic, and gender sensitivity is something that we at SHEmantra are very committed to. A lot of us actually have it as a part of the professional work that we do in the outside world, outside of SHEmantra in any case. But we also participate in panels, we do roundtables, we do a lot of discussion within the group, in fact, to first of all call out on our own biases, which everybody has, right, inherently in them, even as women. So it goes for all genders. And I think we can do with more of it. And I will bear this in mind. And I definitely want to involve a lot of men to also come and speak with us, so that we're doing this together. I don't think we can exclude anybody from this large and very important topic. This conversation is an important one. And thank you for even mentioning this. Sri Vidya, we need to do more on this, is what I would say.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Ujjwala is back.
Yes, I'm here. I want to ask, rather than LinkedIn, how we can connect with this Shri Mantra.
Okay. So we have events from time to time. We have. Would it be possible in some way for everyone who's connected with Yes Talks to be given a link to maybe connect back with us? If not LinkedIn, I'm happy to share my email. If you feel comfortable, you can email me directly. And so the easier email is Ajwani Shilpa, AJWANI SHILPA, Ajwani Shilpa, like a one word, at gmail.com. If that is more comfortable, because that will just help me understand, how would you like to be associated and help you accordingly. Also, we have Sri Vidya's Gmail address. So both her and my Gmails are there. And you could connect with either of us, and we are happy to help you.
I do have one question, Shilpa, if nobody else is speaking up, if you're happy to answer.
I'm here for you.
What's your big learning in this whole community building exercise? It's not easy. When I see the number of messages, I'm like, okay, I have to pause and read the messages. And I literally, sometimes I don't even have the time to go through them. And that's the honest truth.
Yes.
But for you to handle those micro communities, those introductory messages, to respond with the warmth that you respond to each and every message, I mean, hats off. And what does it take to do something like that?
I would say pure intent. And that's my biggest learning, that if we are intentional about something and we've made it a purposeful priority in our life, we will make the time, and it has to come out of those same 24 hours. Also, to build something worthwhile, meaningful, which is also fulfilling for you and enables others around you. It's not easy, yes. Like any other thing of beauty, as I call it, it will require the discipline, it will require the love. And like I said, those the 5 pillars, one has to be always conscious about how am I doing there. So it's also a self-appraisal in a way I give myself. But it also, I feel, gets easier as more and more people catch the purpose and they start resonating with it, and then they start contributing. Because I, in my capacity, with my experience, with my limitations, being who I am, can only think of this much and can only do this much. But imagine, even if 100 SHEmantrans out of the 500 were to take an active interest, raise their hand, suggest an idea each, we are richer by 100 ideas. And the beauty is, because they feel this is their own, they will not just give the idea and step back. They will say, okay, how do we make it possible, Shilpa? And that's where I think this whole empowerment piece is so important, that for them to feel safe in giving that idea, and then to have the confidence that they'll be allowed to run with it. And nobody will judge them if that idea bombs, doesn't go as well, nobody likes it. They know at least Shilpa will be standing strongly with them, supporting them and making it a success. So I really feel that these are some very important and beautiful lessons emerging out of it every day for me. That be very, very intentional. I think I know that till my intention is pure, I don't have to worry. Eyes closed, and there'll be beautiful things happening. So, and sometimes it just feels like it's magical and from the divine. I am not even doing anything. It might seem like, but it just is unbelievable for me as well sometimes on how, yeah, just intent can create magic. So that's how I will answer.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you for the question. It always makes me reflect, actually. Some things you do intuitively, but it's always nice to find meaning in how it is done. More from a point of view that how can one replicate that recipe? So many people have asked me, can you put it in a bottle and share it around the world, whatever has made SHEmantra? So I said, this is what it is. I'm very open, and I would love for more communities to come out of SHEmantra and go to the world in different ways, to serve the planet in different ways as well. So that's another thing which is very much part of my vision, too. Yeah.
Thank you, Shilpa ma'am. Dr. Bijlani, I request you to share your thoughts as well, please.
This indeed has been an experience. In fact, I was going to request you, I wish I had been a woman so that I could be a SHEmantran, but you already said that men are welcome. So that solves one difficult issue. About a month ago, I had a Zoom call with Shilpa, and I made a light-hearted remark that your name can be spelt as Ajwani. Aj is today, and Vani is voice, today's voice. I find that light-hearted remark, in fact, can be considered something serious that really applies to her, and not only the Ajwani part, but also the Shilpa part. Shilpa is, related to construction. So she's today's voice constructing a better future. That's the way I would interpret her name. Some of the key things which emerged are universal. We all know them, and yet how difficult they are to practice. Sincerity, gratitude, a pure intent, and then forgetting about everything, and the divine guides us. To that one adds also, if all these things are there, usually passion and commitment. And as you know, Sri Aurobindo and Mother have repeatedly emphasized that things don't happen because of pure calculating reason. They happen when you are passionately involved. So that passion is important, but then the type of passion that is not being wasted on things, as Shilpa said, on things that may be in fact detrimental to us. So that passion is one that has been illumined by our deepest self, the soul, and that in fact can do much more than anything else. And once passion has been illumined, much of the battle is won, because the intellect quickly sort of decides to follow that passion, and that is how the things happen, these amazing things happen, which you have been talking about. Thank you for sharing a very illustrious life, how you got that award and that became a turning point. And some people might have pointed out to you, and this would occur to anybody, that it is easy to take to that sort of a life, take that sort of a plunge, to give it all up and do something which comes from a higher and deeper level, something which shows a far greater sense of oneness with the rest of humanity, and that oneness which is inspired by love and translates into meaningful action. It's all very easy to do it after you have satisfied and are saturated with the usual achievements. Well, if one thinks of that, yes, to some extent it may be true, but all the same, there is no limit to how much one may want to achieve in this world. And therefore, reaching a point where you say, well, this much is enough, now I want to give a new direction to my life. that has a lot of significance. However, I feel like sharing one anecdote from a girl from an underprivileged family. We have plenty of such groups coming to the ashram. And once a girl said something very remarkable. She was from a very poor family. She said कि we are thankful to God, खाने को खाना है, तन पे कपड़ा है, सर के ऊपर छत है और घर में ढेर सारा प्यार है. सिर्फ पैसे ही तो थोड़े कम है. Now the way she put it, it was sort of again that feeling of abundance, uh, in spite of scarcity. So it can happen also in the scarce conditions, and this sense of abundance may be missing even when apparently everything is available. So how does that happen? That probably happens because we arrive in this world with a certain level of consciousness, depending upon how much work had been put in by the time we ended our previous life on earth. So that is the spiritual explanation. And somewhat along the same lines would be the spiritual explanation for something that you said, that how is it out of millions and billions of people, I ended up collecting quickly this small community which was so like minded. How did that magic happen? That again is because of the same thing, because those of us, I mean, who are at a similar level of consciousness, may be widely separated geographically, but then just needs that little trigger, that little coincidence, which brings all of us together. And to explain this, one of the modern thinkers, spiritual thinkers, Gary Zukav, has sort of given an analogy, which is very interesting. He says that if you imagine a drama company in which there's a troupe who keep traveling from one place to another, and as they travel, they play different roles in different uh, plays that they enact. Uh, and they might have had sort of different types of relationships with one another in all those plays. But then their deeper relationship, their intimacy, their love for one another is not because of those relationships, it is because they belong to the same drama company. So, in the same way, we've all stayed perhaps together in some other world for long periods of time. And when we arrive on earth, we get scattered. But then it doesn't take long for us to recognize, yes, this is that same person with whom I've lived so long. We don't put it that way, but then you feel an affinity. We feel as if we have known each other for ages, although sometimes the contact might have been less than an hour. You start feeling that. This person sends you a lot of energy. You feel that you are enhancing each other's energy, and you feel that there's a soul connection, as Shilpa, put it very nicely. So, in fact, that is not just a sort of currently fashionable or impressive way of putting it. There is truly a soul connection, and that explains this sort of phenomena. As you were speaking, I was also thinking of another thing, and this applies to many other people like you, including Gary Zukav, uh, who are talking about the uh, purpose of life being something that is based primarily on a sense of oneness, a sense of love, which translates into uh, generosity and that wideness that doesn't matter. Uh, more communities like this grow, willing to share everything. So that is generosity. As the mother has also said that the important thing is good work to be done. Doesn't matter who is doing it, doesn't matter under what banner it is being done. That really doesn't matter. So the important thing is the work. And what is the work that Sri Aurobindo and the mother have talked about? Basically, something like what you are talking about, that is doing something that will not only raise your consciousness, but also radiate that influence so that others feel inspired also to work towards that end. Those who have an opening, they find a platform, a an excuse or circumstances in which they can also work towards a rise in their consciousness. And as this happens to more and more people, it will translate into the average level of consciousness of humanity shifting. And since our nature, the way we behave, depends upon the level of consciousness, we can reach a tipping point where the number of such people who are at that level of consciousness, which gives us a personality which is love driven rather than ego driven, the world will become a much better place to live in. So they have a vision of a better world based on this. And many people like Gary Zukav, David Hawkins, Nikki Cartere, they have talked about all these things without having read Sri Aurobindo. And I'm not sure, but probably even you have not read Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. So many people talking about these things without having read Sri Aurobindo and the Mother makes it, in fact, even more significant. Means that it is somewhere in the air. And anyone with that receptivity is picking up these ideas and talking about them. And this seems to be growing. So, Sri Aurobindo and the Mother's vision, which they expressed about 100 years ago, might have looked like a fantasy at that time, but we can see evidence of it all around us in people like you. And therefore, I'm quite sure that if you, if for nothing else, at least for sort of feeling a little more reassured that you are along the right lines, you read something of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, because people of or gurus of that stature, if they are saying the same thing, you feel more reassured. If you do that, I'm sure you'll take to their teachings as a fish takes to water, exactly as Sri Vidya did. She also took to them relatively recently, and the same thing happened to her. She took to those teachings to the way a fish turns to water, and the result is that within a couple of years of having done that, now she has started speaking in our satsangs in the ashram. So it has been so fast. So I'm sure something like that will happen to you too. And we would be very happy to actually see you. Probably you are neighbors, no? You and Sri Vidya live in the same area. So sometimes you can come with her, and I'm sure the same thing would happen to you. And that will add one more dimension, one more route, one more channel by which you can do this work, which is important. That is what is important. The instruments can change, the instruments will keep coming and going. I have to particularly at my age, I have to think of the instrument going away also. But then it's so reassuring that there's no dearth of younger instruments who will continue the work. That is important. Doesn't matter uh, under whose name, under what banner, at which place. I mean, the entire whole sincerity of intent and the level from which it was coming was so clear from the euphonic clusters of so many C's and so many P's and so on, because those things you see also come when you're totally involved and immersed in it. Then, you know, from that higher source, all these things come to you, and you just catch on them, and uh, it makes it so much enjoyable. And also, I'm sure much of what you were speaking was coming from the heart, or one might say coming from a higher source, and you were just acting as an unobstructed channel. So that is what was happening, and that is what gave it that life, that force, and that vigor, and that sort of an infective and contagious uh, um, touch, which I'm sure affected all the listeners and will affect many more when they listen to the recordings of your talk. So thank you once again for this remarkable experience of sharing your life, your activities, and through that, which is always the best thing to do, because if you want to talk about ideas instead of talking in terms of abstract philosophy, it's always better to wrap them up in the life of an individual. And who better can do it than the individual herself? So in that way, it has been truly one of those very remarkable talks in the Yes series, and I'm sure many more will watch it when Arunima uploads the recording. Thank you once again.
Thank you. I just feel SHEmantra has become blessed with the mother and Sri Aurobindo saying that this needs to go and grow bigger. I really feel that blessing right now, even as you were speaking. So gratitude for inviting me today. And thank you, Sri Vidya.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Shilpa ma'am. We thank you again for a beautiful session, very inspiring session, and for sharing your valuable time with us. I thank the participants as well for being with us today. We can close today's session with a moment of peaceful silence. Okay.